It's emerged that in the 1970s and 80s, young children and babies in the UK were involved in medical trials which involved contaminated blood products without their parents being told anything about it. The BBC has seen evidence that the children, even a baby with mild blood conditions, were given blood products that doctors knew could be infected by viruses, including hepatitis C. Many of them later became ill because of the blood products linked to high-risk donors, including prisoners in the United States who'd sold their blood. The children are some of the 30,000 people in the UK who were infected with HIV and hepatitis C after being given contaminated blood products over 2 decades. In total, it's thought about 3,000 people have died. A public inquiry has been examining what's been described as the biggest treatment disaster in the history of the NHS. Here's our health editor, Hugh.
That's all we were, is guinea pigs.
To experiment on children is ethically wrong, full stop.
When these men were children, they went for treatment for their health conditions, but their parents weren't told they'd been enrolled into medical research trials. Luke, who has a mild form of the blood clotting disorder Hemophilia, was put into a clinical trial when he was 3 after a small cut. Before that, he hadn't needed treatment. Normally, his mild condition wouldn't need the powerful blood-clotting product Factor VIII, known to be contaminated with viruses. He was labelled a virgin haemophiliac.
There was incredible benefit in virgin haemophiliac to be able to have a clean Petri dish to be scientifically, to be able to understand science through. Ultimately, at that point, I didn't need Factor VIII.
This document reveals that Luke's doctor wrote a letter to a Dr. Peter Kernoff referring to Luke and another boy's treatment. Noting they were both virgin haemophiliacs, he writes, "I hope they'll be suitable for the heat-treated trial." The results were published in 1985, confirming that Luke, as well as the others enrolled, had been infected with hepatitis C. That was known as non-A, non-B at the time. No patients were told about their infections. Peter Kernoff also had support in recruiting patients from a Dr. Aronstam. He worked in Hampshire at a specialist school known as Trelaws. It had medical facilities on site which helped pupils lead a more normal life, but also presented clinical researchers with a unique cohort of children. I met 3 of the 122 boys who attended the school in the 70s and 80s, Gary, Steve and Aid.
Every new boy presumably was started on a trial. I mean, I certainly did. I went in 75. By the beginning of 76, I was on a trial.
Some research focused on preventative, known as prophylactic treatment, which meant 3 to 4 times more of the blood product known to be contaminated was given to the boys than they required.
If we didn't go for our prophylaxis appointments, we would either get dragged out of school lessons because you'd missed your appointment, and if you did it so many times, you got black marks.
They also were supposed to call, the haemophilia doctors were supposed to call our parents, and they were supposed to make that phone call, and they never did.
They had access to our blood, our veins, whenever they wanted it, and they exploited that.
At the public inquiry, the question was asked, did Trelaw's children become objects of research and study, rather than being patients first and foremost? Were established medical codes of practice broken?
If they were given a higher risk product, which they didn't need therapeutically, and that wasn't necessary for their care, then that would seem to be exploitation, unless there's some clinically valid reason for giving it to them.
And in breach of these key international codes?
In which case it would have breached the Declaration of Helsinki.
Mark Stewart, his brother and father, all had very mild von Willebrand's disease, another form of blood clotting disorder. Mark's father was in his late 30s before he was even diagnosed, as his condition was so mild.
Once a month you have a little nosebleed, or once every couple of months, nothing thingy, you'd go up and you'd have cryoprecipitate, and it done the job, and that was it.
Cryoprecipitate, that was known to carry less risk of viral infections, had worked well for the Stewart boys. But Dr. Kernoff was interested to see just how risky different Factor VIII treatments were. So without consent, a new trial enrolled a 4-month-old baby, as well as those with very mild blood clotting conditions. This included the Stewarts, who until that moment had never needed the highly contaminated Factor VIII products. Mark suspects he's patient number 11, his father was patient number 18, and his brother patient number 19. All three contracted hepatitis C. Mark's brother and father have now both died with liver cancer after the virus attacked this organ.
Angry is an understatement, because it took me 17 years of being called delusional and, you know, I'm making this up and none of this is true and I'm being fobbed off.
All the doctors named here have since died. The inquiry will conclude how medical ethics codes were observed, but as the interim report stated, wrong was done on individual, collective and systemic levels.
Well, Hugh is with me now. It is extraordinary to think that children, even a baby, were involved in these medical trials without their parents knowing anything about it.
Yes, Sophie, shocking stories we've been hearing from children, now adults, who, looking back, say that they were guinea pigs or lab rats, and on a much, much bigger scale all this and over many more years than perhaps we previously thought. Now, it could have been treatment which was justifiable but delivered at much too high a quantity, or not justifiable at all but still delivered, all for medical research, which was very much done in secrecy. Now, Sir Brian Langstaff, the chair of the public inquiry, has looked at this issue along with many, many others. He will report on the whole scandal next month. His conclusions will be very closely watched. But campaigners and families are saying they want a full compensation scheme, compensating for loss of life chances, loss of earnings, set up very, very soon afterwards by the government. That, and what they want above all, in their own words, they want justice.
Hugh, thank you.